All right, everyone, well, tonight we are going to do some astrophotography. I'm out here at Hemlock Lake Park in Hemlock, New York. It's one of the Finger Lakes, and it's actually a great place to shoot astrophotography because there's no housing developments on this lake. It's used as a water source for Rochester, New York. So as you can see behind me, there's nothing here. It's completely quiet. There's a couple people walking around. But this is where I like to go to do a lot of my astrophotography. So we're gonna go through a bunch of different setups, how I set up my star tracker, how I find my objects in the sky, how I take my pictures. And it's gonna be a little dark, so I'm gonna try to set things up before it gets too dark, just so I can show you the process and exactly how I do my astrophotography here. So when looking for places to do my astrophotography, I look for dark skies, and unfortunately up by Rochester it's not a lot of dark skies. So this is one of the darker areas down by the Finger Lakes. It's a Bortle 4 zone, which is much better than my Bortle 7 or 8 up in Greece. So I do like to come down here. It's about a 45-minute drive from my house, but it's well worth it. So before I come down, I look at the clear skies, and if it's going to be clear at night, you definitely don't want to come down and find out that the clouds have overtaken everything. So I wait to see that it's going to be very clear. This park doesn't really have a closing time, but I'm sure if somebody came in and said you're not supposed to be here because it's past dark, I would have to leave. And so to prevent that, what I'm doing is parking on the side of the road. So I'm in the park right now. I'll get in my car. There's little cutouts on the side of the road. I'll show you that when I set up. And that's a public road, so I can be there all night long if I want to. And at least I know that I won't be told to leave halfway through shooting and have to put everything away, because putting everything away takes a little bit of time. I also don't have to haul everything out here, which is nice. I can put everything right next to my car and sit in my car if it gets too cold. So just to show you a little of the layout, when I do pictures of the Milky Way, I usually either include this little gazebo or I stand right near it, and I shoot directly over the south end of Hemlock Lake. The Milky Way usually starts right around this area, and as winter goes along, it'll start moving more to the west. You can see the sun setting right there. Tonight, since I'm going to be shooting directly above me, what I'm gonna do, and what I used to do actually, is go down in this little gully here. Right by these trees, there's a little picnic table right there. That's where I would shoot most of my stars. But since I don't want to be in the park tonight, and I want to be somewhere, I want to be where I can get in my car if I get a little cold, I'm gonna go down by the road over here, where there's a little cutout. I can see a guy fishing right there. And the only important part is I need to be able to see the North Star Polaris. I have to polar align my star tracker, so you always have to have a visual line of sight to Polaris. So as long as I can see over those trees, which I know I can because I did a couple days ago, we should be just fine for tonight. It is one of the clearest nights that it's been in a while tonight, so I'm really excited to see what we can get. Another issue that I always look at is the moon phase, and the rising and setting of the moon. Tonight the moon doesn't set till 11:30, and it's almost half full. So it might be, it would be tough doing the Milky Way since the moon is actually setting right over here tonight, and that is right where the Milky Way is. So I couldn't do Milky Way pictures tonight. But since I'm going to be shooting directly above me tonight, I'm hoping that the moonlight won't affect the images too much. I am looking at getting some narrowband filters, which should filter out a lot of that moonlight. But we're gonna have to wait and see what happens tonight. I'm hoping I can get some good pictures. We're going to shoot for the North American Nebula tonight, which is straight above me. And I'll also show you how I find the different objects that I shoot at night. All right, it's getting about that time. We're gonna walk back to my car, and then we're gonna go park over by the road and start getting set up. All right, so as you can just see, I moved my car over to this little cutout here. The lake is behind me over here. So this little area right here is where I'll set up the camera and the tripod, looking north that way so I can polar align my star tracker. And other than that, we're gonna get ready and get set up. So, a couple keys to a successful night shooting astrophotography. Number one, check the weather. Don't come far away from home if you think it might be cloudy. You need a clear, dark sky. Number two, check the Bortle number that you're at, the Bortle area, how much light pollution is around you. Sometimes just driving 15, 20, 30 minutes away from a city can make all the difference in the world, which it does down here. I go from a Bortle 8 to a Bortle 4 being down here. If you go down to Cherry Springs State Park in Pennsylvania, it's a Bortle 2, which is way better than anything we'll get here in upstate New York. Number three, check the wind. You cannot shoot very good astrophotography if you have a lot of wind. The star tracker needs to be very stable. Sometimes you're shooting 1, 2, 3 minute exposures. Any little bump or wind gust will ruin that entire exposure, and you have to throw it out. And if you shoot an hour worth of film, you don't want to throw out 40 minutes of it because of that. So sometimes it's better when it is a little windy to shoot a little shorter exposures, 30 seconds to 1 minute exposures. Check the temperature. Make sure you dress warmly and appropriately. I have long underwear on, I got jeans on, I'm wearing boots in case it gets a little damp or muddy. Always be prepared for the weather. I have my car right here, I can sit in my car if it gets too cold. But remember too, you're one part of astrophotography that you should always remember is, to just look up at the night sky and enjoy it. I don't want to be sitting in my car all night long. I'm here to enjoy the peace, the quiet, and the stars above. Okay. Next thing to remember, humidity level. So if you get wide temperature changes and the dew point is relatively high, you're going to get a lot of dew forming on the ground. So it's going to get a lot wetter where you are, and on your camera and on your lens. You need to have a dew heater and you need to have a dew shield. Those two things will save all of your astrophotography, because after a couple of minutes that camera will heat up, the ambient temperature is cold, it's going to create a lot of dew, it's going to cover up your lens, and you're not going to be able to take pictures. So you're going to need to invest in a dew heater. I'll show you the one I have. It's very simple, it's really inexpensive, but it's a lifesaver, and I've had to use it every single night this summer that I've taken the camera out. Other than that, some other things you want to look at is the transparency of the sky, the seeing, the temperature swings. Sometimes if you have a huge temperature swing through the night, you have to readjust your focus. So always be aware, never leave your focus and shoot for 3 hours and expect that focus to be dead center all night long. If that temperature drops drastically, you might need to reevaluate your focus. Check your equipment. Make sure you bring everything with you. Make sure you have extra batteries, extra power banks. I bring 2 of everything just in case. I don't want to drive all the way down here and find out that I forgot one thing and therefore I can't shoot any pictures. My Star Tracker takes AA batteries. My headlamps take AAA batteries. My dew heater needs a power bank. I bring 2 power banks. So it's important that you do remember all of that stuff. Another important thing to remember is to check the moon phase and the rising and setting of the moon. Tonight's not going to be a great night. We have half a moon. It's right up there. It's not going to set till 11:30. I'm going to be out of here by then. So I'm going to have the moon up tonight, and I'm hoping it doesn't distract too much from my photos. So we'll see. But we're trying to figure out if I need to get a filter or not tonight. So the next thing to remember is always prepare what you're going to image well in advance. Don't come out and not know what you want to image. You'll spend hours just trying to find different objects and then find out that all your time is used up for that night. So tonight we are shooting the North American Nebula. I know exactly where it is, straight above me. As soon as I am polar aligned and it hits astronomical twilight, I'm going to aim right up at it. I'm going to start shooting pictures as soon as I can, get as many images as I can tonight. And the last thing that I can really think of before you come, you want to think safety. If you have somebody to go out with when you go shoot pictures of the stars, it's always better with a friend. I've always gone by myself or with my brother, but I enjoy it. I am on the side of the road, but I'm near my car. It is weird sometimes. Cars just randomly at 11 o'clock at night drive in and sit in the parking lot with their lights on for an hour and then leave. You know, those kind of things happen. So you always want to make sure you're in a safe area. Wildlife there, you know, I'm down in the Finger Lakes. There's bears down here. There's, you know, a lot of mosquitoes and other things that you just gotta be prepared for. So tonight we're going to be shooting the North American Nebula. The North American Nebula is located in the constellation Cygnus, which is straight above us this time of year. It's approximately 2,000 light years away. It's also called NGC 7000. So it should be relatively easy to find. It's almost in the center of the constellation Cygnus. So, you know, using the stars, I think I'll be able to find it and align it pretty well. We're going to be using a Star Adventurer star tracker, Pentax K-70, got a tripod, dew shield, dew heater, intervalometer, which I'll explain, it's very important, a red dot scope, and that's to help align the image, makes it a little easier to line it up. So it's a very basic beginner setup, but I've gotten a lot better at processing the photos. So tonight or tomorrow morning, what I'll do is take all the images I shoot tonight, I will put them into either Deep Sky Stacker or Sequitur, and I'll probably put it into both, take the best image out of that, put it into PixInsight, and I'll do all my processing in PixInsight, Lightroom, and Photoshop after that, and hopefully come up with a good image of the North American Nebula. It's called the North American Nebula because it looks like the continent of North America. So it should be easy to define, and I'll know if I got it. But it's always exciting when you finish the processing to see your photos. I started about a year ago with my first image of Andromeda. I was really proud of that image, and it was awful. And I'm much better at it now. But I like doing nebulas, so I've been going through the fall nebulas right now. All right, let's get everything set up. Got my tripod, carbon fiber tripod. Very important to have a very sturdy tripod, because again, any movement will ruin your pictures. And it's important to have a balanced tripod. This is at an angle, so I'm gonna have to balance it, but I gotta use my star tracker to do the balancing. All right, here is the base of my Skywatcher Star Adventurer. I'm gonna very simply screw the whole thing on here. Then we have to readjust the tripod. So this is pointing at the North Celestial Pole. All right, now that we've aligned the Star Adventurer to Polaris, you want to check and make sure that it's level. It looks pretty good right now. Maybe a little bit off, but I'll fix that. Then we use any app that's going to show us what our latitude is. We are at 42 degrees, 46 minutes. We want to plug that in here so we know we're at the right angle to see Polaris. So we plug it in here, we tighten it down, and then this makes small adjustments up and down. So when we look through the viewfinder, we'll be able to see Polaris and line it up. Now, once we have our tripod level and our Skywatcher pointing up towards Polaris, we want to add a weight to the bottom of the tripod. This will help keep it stable so there won't be any little movements during the night. Now I want to add a USB brick under here too. This is going to help power my dew heater to keep the dew off tonight. So right now, we haven't been able to polar align yet. It's still a little bit too bright out to see Polaris, but I'm going to get the L bracket set up. It's very easy. This is the L bracket. This is where the camera sits on, and this is the counterweight. Just screw them in together. And then very simply, making sure the clutch, this black part right here is the clutch. Make sure it's tight. And then this slides right into here. And then we lock it down. The good thing is, because there's a hole right here, I can still align Polaris even with this on there. And during the night, I can check it and make sure I'm still aligned, polar aligned through the night. The importance of the clutch here, when you're shooting the stars, you only want it finger tight. You don't need it real tight. Right now the camera's not on it, so it slid a little. Inside there's little crosshairs that say 0, 3, 6, and 9, and those need to be lined up perfectly straight up and down. So you want to do that while it's still light out. Point it at a tree, point it at something straight up and down. So, so you have that alignment. Then there's a little circle inside here, and Polaris should sit on that circle somewhere, not in the center of the crosshairs. And so we use Star Adventure Utilities app, and whatever time it is, it'll tell you exactly where on that circle Polaris should be. And then you use these little knobs here and the knob up here to go up and down to put Polaris exactly on the circle where it shows. And then you simply turn the Star Adventure on and it starts tracking. It's as simple as that. The next thing we're going to do is start getting our cameras set up. This is a Pentax K-70 with a Rokinon 135mm lens, one of the best astrophotography lenses you can get. It's very inexpensive. This is a red dot finder. This is going to go right on top of here. Screws on, and I've already aligned it. So when I turn it on, okay, I don't know if you can see it through there, but there's a little red dot, and that will align perfectly anything in the center of this lens. So this is a great camera, built for astrophotography. It's got a screen that I can pop out, which makes it really easy if I'm shooting something straight up in the sky. All right, and then batteries. I have 5 batteries. Always make sure your batteries are recharged before you go out, because that's another thing that can ruin a night. Okay, now I gotta put one more thing on here. All right, the next thing I'm putting on is a quick release plate. This one's a little bigger than I really need. But what this does is it allows me to balance the camera a little further back here. If it was not here, the camera is so top heavy, it would be impossible to balance the L bracket. So what this does is it allows me to move the camera back a little bit just to achieve much, much better balance. All right, it's getting a little dark out here now, but the next thing I'm gonna do now to polar align, help me polar align, is use this little red dot, turn it on, just see that tiny little red dot there. That goes in the front of the polar scope. This will stay on all night. I'll leave it here so I can keep track of my polar alignment. I'm gonna set up, do the polar alignment. Pretty good right now. So we're now polar aligned. So now that we're polar aligned, what I can do is loosen up the clutch here and make sure we're balanced in right ascension, which is this direction. Okay, as you can see, it's perfectly balanced. If it wasn't, I would move the weight here up or down. All right, and then once we get the right ascension balance, we do the declination. Declination is very simple. We undo this and we just turn the camera in the direction of where we're going to be shooting, which is going to be almost above our heads. And then we'll tighten down the declination. Okay, we are perfectly balanced right now. Doesn't matter which way I put this, we've got perfect balance. So I can tighten the clutch here, tighten the clutch here. All right, we are now perfectly polar aligned and balanced. All right, so now we're going to add the dew shield. Dew shield's very simple. It's USB powered. Wraps around the end of the lens, and it keeps the lens warm. And actually very powerful, because we want to keep this warm throughout the whole night so the dew doesn't form on here. Another thing we do is we take this cover off. This is the dew lens. So basically we just flip this around, and this also helps prevent dew. It's not going to do a great job pointing straight up at the sky, but that's why we have the dew heater strap. All right, so simply I'm going to wrap this around here. You want it relatively tight, and it doesn't matter right now because we haven't yet focused on anything, but we're still able to move the focus around. So but for now we just want to make sure this isn't going to get caught on anything. It's not going to get in the way. We're going to plug it right into our power bank. and just start heating the lens to prevent the dew. All right, the next thing we're going to plug in is our intervalometer. Very easy to use. Probably going to want another battery in here pretty soon because I think I left it on. But this right here will control the camera, so I don't have to touch the camera. Anytime you have to press that shutter button, it's going to create vibration and it'll ruin your pictures. So we plug this into the camera. We can set this for as many exposures as we want throughout the night. And then once we hit go, we just let it run and it'll just keep going. All right, so now it's not quite dark enough to take pictures, but it's dark enough for me to start focusing. So first thing I'm going to do is use a Batinov mask. This is a mask, people make them on 3D printers. You can buy them, they're really cheap. This goes over the lens. I'm going to take off the lens cover, and it's used to focus. So we focus on a bright star and it gives you star spikes. And what you want to do is line up the star spike. We've lined up a bright star in the sky. Okay. We opened up our viewfinder. All right, there's the star. So now what we do is we want to zoom into that star. And we find it right here. And you can see those spikes. So now what we want to do is get that center spike perfectly in between the other ones by shifting our focus right about there. I'd say that's almost perfect. So we have our focus now. We do want to check it throughout the night to make sure it doesn't change. As you can see, if I even touch the camera a tiny bit, it moves quite a bit. But that's out of focus, that's way out of focus. And we just slowly line it up till it's perfectly in the center. All right, so now that we found our focus, what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on the Star Adventurer. So now it's gonna lock that in position right there. And we're gonna take a quick picture. So we don't want it for 1:30. We're gonna put it down to 10 seconds. This should be fine. Let me turn my headlamp off. For this, I'll just press the button. 10 seconds, and this is just to confirm our focus. So after 10 seconds goes by, we'll check everything, make sure we have our focus set. All right, then we open up the picture, we zoom in, there it is. That's perfect focus. All right, so that's all set. So now we have to frame up the nebula. Before we do that, let's make sure we get our settings right. We're gonna try for about 1:30. We don't want f2.8. f2.8 is the, actually no we do. f2.0 is the lowest that we can go on this lens, which is actually really good, but you're gonna get bloated stars. So we're gonna try for f2.8, a couple stops. And then the ISO I like to keep around 800. That gives us the highest dynamic range. The Pentax is an ISO invariant camera, which means that if we go anything over 800, it's not gonna make any difference in the amount of noise in the background, but it will decrease the dynamic range as we go further over 800. All right, so we got our focus. I've rechecked our polar alignment. I got it framed in as well as I can. One thing we are going to do now is, before we start shooting, we got to make sure it's there. So we're going to turn the ISO up pretty good. Hopefully not blow it out too much. And let's do about 1:30. We'll see if we have anything in the frame. All right, so we just finished our test shot. Let's see if we got anything in here. Oh, I can already see it. So I believe right there is the North American Nebula. If I zoom in, stars look pretty good. So What I might do is try for, let's see, that's actually really lined up really well. We might try for a little bit longer exposure, lower ISO, maybe a 2-minute exposure, and see if the star tracker can handle that. So what we'll do is increase, let's see, we'll go up to 2 minutes. We're gonna go ISO, let's go about 1600 this time. Let's see what happens here. All right, we just finished our 2-minute shot at 1600 ISO. Let's see if we got it. That's pretty good. Check our stars. Okay, so we got a little bit of trailing here. So I think 2 minutes is gonna be a little bit too long. So let's back out. Let's go to the one before, the 90-minute one, or 90-second one. Yeah, that's better. You always have to check all the stars, make sure everything looks pretty round. Always check the corners. So see a tiny bit of trailing. So I think what we're gonna do, because I do like the nebulosity and it's lined up really well, is we're gonna keep it at f2.8. We'll put the ISO to 800. Let's see. And we will go about 1 minute, 20 seconds. ISO is gonna go down to 800. This is where we're gonna shoot from now. All right, so we're all ready to start shooting. So first thing we're gonna do is we have to set our intervalometer. So we are gonna go to, let's see, we don't need that, we need bulb. So we're gonna set it for 120. Okay, the interval, remember the interval has to be minimum the exact amount of time, 1 minute, 20 seconds, but you need time for that sensor to cool down. So I give it about 5 seconds usually. So we'll go 125 for the interval. And then the amount of shots, if we're going to go 120, we're going to do, I think we'll just go right up to 100. I don't think we'll stay for 100 shots, but that would be perfect. Because if we go to 60 shots, that's an hour and 20 minutes. So we'll try for 100. All right, so now all I gotta do is press start. So I'm gonna turn my headlamp off and get going. So now we just sit here and wait. There's the camera doing its thing. And now we just hang out in the car, look at the stars, which can't really see too much of right now. You can see the stars, but that moon is awfully bright. But I think it's taken pretty good pictures so far. So I'm just gonna let it go. Hopefully we'll be out of here around 10:30 tonight, be home by 11:30, and then I got my alarm set for 6:20 to get up tomorrow morning. All right, so we are now going to check everything out. It's been almost 2 hours. I just want to look at the last picture it took. Okay, there it is, still in the frame. It's a little fuzzy, there we go. So it's ISO 800, so it's not going to be as bright as it was when we took our test shot. But when we combine all these pictures together, it's going to look pretty good. So as I go through these pictures, see the pictures are going down and it's not moving at all. That is really good. So I don't know how many pictures I've taken, but we can figure it out by looking at the last picture. All right, so last picture was 5062. And we're going to go down and see when we started. Okay, so these are my test shots. So 50, 62, and 84. So 62, 72, plus 6 is 78 pictures. That's pretty good. All right, so we have a total of 1 hour and 44 minutes so far, which is actually a good amount. And the battery is almost dead. So what I'm going to do is put a new battery in. I'm done taking my light frames, but what's really important is that you take dark frames too. So we're going to add the dark frames, probably take about 15 of those, and then we're going to head out. All right, so we've taken 1 hour and 44 minutes total. Those are our light frames. So now we're going to do dark frames. So I put the lens cover back on. I'm going to put a new battery in. And then we have to take dark frames. Dark frames help take some of the noise out of the picture. So when you do the dark frames, you want to keep everything else the exact same. You need to keep the ISO the same, the focus the same. All you're doing is covering up the lens and taking your frames. But as of now, since I'm done taking lights, I can turn off the star tracker and I can actually start putting almost everything away. But you need the camera to stay out in the same temperature and conditions that it was during the light frames.